Talon Masteries with Stormraider Surge. Okay, so the main thought process behind Stormraider Surge is that you will deal 30% of a champion's max health within 2.5 seconds, and this will grant you a large movement speed boost, which is about 40% according to the tooltip, and 75% slow resistance for 3 seconds. So 40% movement speed increase for 3 seconds, and it's got a 10-second cooldown. Basically, this is the best snowballing mastery that exists, other than the damage masteries, of course. This extra utility of movement speed and slow resistance can give you an opportunity to deal more damage. And for a champion like Talon, where you're going to either open with Rake or your gap closer, which will amplify your damage, you're definitely going to get 30% of their max health down within 2.5 seconds. If anything, Talon is known for being able to 100 to 0 people within like less than that, less than 1 second. So the main decision point is what else do you go? If you want to go Stormraider Surge, well, what else masteries do I go? So let's go through it. Imagine that we don't have any points, and I'll explain why we want these points. Okay, so Savagery versus Wanderer. This is not really going to help you in lane. This might help you gank a little bit better from the mid lane. Talon is really only played mid lane. If you play Talon in any other role than that, I'm sure you don't need to understand how to play him better, so keep doing what you're doing. And this would be like the first major decision point, whether you want to go Assassin or Secret Stash. Secret Stash will give you a slightly better laning phase if you decide to go with potions, but most people start with Corrupting Potion on Talon anyway, so Assassin is probably the way to go. You're going to get that 2% increased damage that'll help you proc Storm Raiders more often when your ultimate is not up. And it'll just be like it's more damage. It's not utility, but in a way, because you're going Storm Raiders, extra damage becomes utility. So it's pretty good. Merciless, of course, you're going to want the increased damage to champions below 40% health. This is much better than the old Executioner Mastery. There's a lot of damage loaded into this set of mastery points, so it'd be pretty dumb to go down this tree without getting it. And it's pretty standard. I mean, there's not really much explanation that you're going to need for Merciless and Dangerous Game. So another thing is that this mastery basically gives damage, Precision does, and this mastery basically gives cooldown reduction. So in a vacuum, cooldown reduction is also more damage, but like let's say you don't have access to those other spells or you don't have the mana to cast the extra spells. In that situation, Precision would do more damage. So this is going to fit with Talon's play pattern of doing a lot of damage in a short amount of time. The flat armor penetration and whatever magic penetration doesn't really matter. Okay, so think about Talon's damage application now. Sorcery versus Fury. How much benefit is he going to get from that attack speed as opposed to increased ability damage? So like that's only 4% attack speed. That's not really going to be that noticeable on someone who's mostly casting abilities. So through that theory crafting process of elimination, we have our answer. So some people might be thinking exposed weakness would be good on Talon just because of the ganks. Somebody comes in for a gank and then you can do 3% more damage. That might be fine. Other people might go double-edged sword. I think that Talon is probably a little bit too squishy and a little bit too reliant on his health pool to go double-edged sword, so I would just go for the stronger lane with Feast. And it will actually change your playstyle a little bit depending on which mastery you go. Now, Spell Vamp is actually pretty relevant for someone who has physical damage spells. Spell Vamp does work for physical damage spells, The only time spell vamp doesn't work for a physical damage spell is if it's counted as an on-hit ability like Gangplank's Q or Ezreal's Q. In that case, then you would be dealing with lifesteal, but Talon also gets benefit from the lifesteal from his auto attacks, and it'll just boost up your sustain for lane. Now, Oppressor would be the way you want to go. If you're playing like fairly high elo, you're not going to snowball that often. Oppressor is going to give you more bang for your buck because you have your guaranteed gap closer, which will give them the slow, and then your rake also has a slow. But because Talon is sort of a hyper carry champion and he needs to do well early in order to do well later, maybe Bounty Hunter would be the better choice. Really depends on the game. At 1 kill, Bounty Hunter is better than Oppressor, so that's probably the better choice in this situation. It's not like you're playing top lane Olaf, where you're gonna get your Q down a lot of the time, and it's gonna then 2% damage is gonna be like a lot more. Yeah, I think Bounty Hunter would just be a lot better for Talon in general. So that is basically it. If you have any questions, direct them to the comments.